जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्द माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So we'll sing this song. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana Jaya Radhe Jaya Vrindavana
Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohana
Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana Jaya
Radhe
Radhe
Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohana
Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Kalindi Yamuna Jaya Jaya Mahavana
Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Kalindi Yamuna Jaya Jaya Mahavana
Keshi Ghatavamshi Vata Dvadash Kanana Yaha Sab Leela Kuilo Shri Nanda Nandana
Keshi Ghata Vamshi Bata Dwadashakanana Jaha Sabalila Kailo Shri Nanda Nandana
Shri Nanda Yashoda Jaya Jaya Gopagan Shri Damadi Jaya Jaya Venu Vatsagan Shri
Shri
Nanda
Nanda
Yashoda
Yashoda
Jaya
Jaya Jaya Gopagana Shri Damadi Jaya Jaya Dhenu Vatsagana
Jaya Vrishabhanu Jaya कीर्तिदा सुंदरी जय पूर्णमासी जय अभिरनगारी जय
जय विश्वभानु जय कीर्तिदा सुंदरी जय पूर्णमासी जय अभिरानगरी
जया जया गोपेश्वरा वृंदावन जय जय कृष्ण सखा भटु द्विजरा जय
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 गोपेश्वरा
गोपेश्वर
वृंदावन जय
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 कृष्ण
कृष्ण
सखा
सखा
भटु
बटुते जरा
द्विजरा जय राम घाट जय रोहिणी नंदन जय जय वृंदावन बासी जट जय
जय
राम घाट जय रोहिणी
रोहिणी
नंदन
जय
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 वृंदावन
वृंदावन बासी जट
जय द्विज पत्नी जय नाग कन्यागान भक्ति तेजहार पाइलो गोविंद चरण जय
जय
द्विज
द्विज
पत्नी
पत्नी
जय
जय
नाग
नाग कन्यागान
कन्यागान
भक्ति तेजहारा पैलो गोविंद चरण
श्रीरास मंडला जया जय राधा श्याम जय जय रास लीला सर्वमनोरम
वीरस
श्रीरास जया
मंडला
जय
जय राधा
राधा
श्याम जय जय रास
लीला
लीला सर्व मनोरम
जय जयोज्ज्वला रसा सर्वरस पर किया भावे जहाँ प्रजेते प्रचार जय
जय जय
जयोज्ज्वला
ज्वाला
रसा
सर्वरस पर
सर्वरससार
किया भावे जहा ब्रजते प्रचार
श्रीजानव पाद पद्मा कोरिया स्मरण दीन कृष्ण दास को हे नाम संकीर्तन श्रीजानव पाद पद्मा
पद्मा
कोरिया
कोरिया
स्मरण दीन
दीन
कृष्ण
कृष्ण
दास
दास
कोरे
कोए नाम
नमस्कृतान
संकीर्तन
श्री जानव पाद पद्मा कोरिया स्मरण दीन कृष्ण दास कोरे नाम संकीर्तन श्री
श्री
जानव
जानव
पाद
पाद
पद्मा
पद्मा
कोरिया
कोरिया
स्मरण
स्मरण दीन कृष्ण दासे को हे नाम संकीर्तन
Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Shri Govinda Gopi Natha Madana Mohan
Jaya Radhe
Jaya
Jaya
Krishna Jaya
Jaya
Vrindavan
Vrindavana Shri
Govinda
Govinda
Gopi
Gopinatha Madana Mohana
Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Govinda Gopi Madana Mohan
Jaya Radhe
Jaya
Jaya
Krishna
Krishna
Jaya
Jaya
Vrindavan
Vrindavana Shri
Govinda
Govinda
Gopi
Gopinatha Madana Mohana
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, all the devotees. So we'll go to our Bhagavatam reading. So 1:18:21 we are doing today, right? Did till 20th yesterday. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah Hare Krishna. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Shlok 21. अथापि यत्पादनखावसृष्टम्
अथापि यत्पादतथाविसृष्ट
जगद्विरिञ्चोपहृतार्हनाम
जगद्विरिञ्चो
Jagat
बृहत्तारणामभा
येषं पुनत्य अन्यतमो मुकुन्दात्
Shesham
येषां पुनाति
Punati
अनयतमो मुकुन्द
Anayatmo
को नाम लोके भगवत्पदार्था
O
को नाम
Namaloke
लोके
Bhagavapadara.
भगवत्पदार्थ
Hare Krishna. Any volunteers who would like to read the translation and purport? Okay, I'll read. Translation. Who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord? Who can be worthy of the name of Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganges, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva. Purport. The conception of many gods in the Vedic literatures by the ignorant is completely wrong. The Lord is one without a second, but he expands himself in many ways, and this is confirmed in the Vedas. Such expansions of the Lord are limitless, but some of them are the living entities. The living entities are not as powerful as the Lord's plenary expansions, and therefore there are two different types of expansions. Lord Brahma is generally one of the living entities, and Lord Shiva is the medium between the Lord and the living entities. In other words, even demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are the chief amongst all demigods, are never equal to or greater than Lord Vishnu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi, and all powerful demigods like Brahma and Shiva are engaged in the worship of Lord. Are engaged in the worship of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Therefore, who can be more powerful than Mukund, the Lord Krishna, to be factually called the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi Ji, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are not independently powerful. They are powerful as expansions of the Supreme Lord, and all of them are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And so also are the living entities. There are 4 sects of worshipful devotees of the Lord, and the chief amongst them are the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, descending directly from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi, respectively. So here I'll read this line again. There are 4 sects of worshipful devotees of the Lord, and the chief amongst them are the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and Shri Sampradaya, descending directly from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Goddess of Fortune, Lakshmi Ji, respectively. Besides the mentioned 3 Sampradaya, there is the Kumar Sampradaya descending from Sanat Kumar. All of the 4 original Sampradaya are still scrupulously engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, up to date. And they all declare that Lord Krishna Mukunda is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no other personality is equal to him or greater than him. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, and welcome all the devotees. So Srimad Bhagavatam, we are reading first canto 18 chapter 21 shloka. In this shloka, in the translation, it is mentioned who can be worthy of the name of Supreme Lord but the personality of Goddess Shri Krishna. Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as wonderful welcome. This is very water. Ganges is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Vishnu. Oh, sorry, including Lord Shiva. Sorry. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is primarily again reminding us about the position of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. So if we go in the translation, and devotees can feel free to add, but here they are talking about the emanating of the Ganges, which came out from the Garbhodak ocean, few drops, when Lord Vamandev, he pierced after becoming Trivikram, he pierced the covering of the universe, and few drops came. The force of the few drops was so powerful, and then they were held as Ganges by Lord Shiva later on, as initially Ganges was only in the spirit, in the higher heavenly planets, and later descended on the earth. So that whole story. So the point is that even Lord Shiva is accepting that water which is washed the feet of Lord Vishnu. He wants to take it as on his head, and the greatness of Lord. So I think recently, yesterday or day before, devotees were quoting from the Shikshashtakam. So they were saying, was it Nam Namakari? Which shloka was being quoted about the holy names, right? Nam Namakari. So then this is also, if you see, it's from same Shikshashtakam only, where it said that not Shishashtama. This is actually also from the morning, after the morning prayers, where we say that one of the offenses of Lord of the holy name is to equate the names of demigods like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, and consider it same as the name of the Lord Vishnu. So that, of course, is very wrong. And because of lack of knowledge, people are actually very hesitant to even say this. They think, अरे सबको खुश रखते हैं ना, क्या दिक्कत है, उनको भी खुश रहने दो, शिव को भी खुश रहने दो, शिव जी को, दुर्गा जी को भी खुश रहने दो. Why should we say? Because they are not sure actually. Those who are sure, those who know, they can clearly say. But because they are not sure, then they say, "Arey, let everybody be there, happy, whoever's name is there." And then some people, they are having wrong conception or misconception. So what they do is, they say, "Nahi, we like this particular devata, so we are going to say this person's name." And because of some sentimental or blind faith, they try to disrespect the other demigods. So when ISKCON is seen to be saying about Krishna, they think it is one of the other people. Like, for example, somebody is saying Ganesh, we are Ganesh worshipper. So then they say Ganesha is the best. But that is because of their sentimental belief system and because of lack of knowledge of the scriptures. And what they do is, they try to give some reasoning from here and there without really consulting the proper understanding of the scriptures. So because such people are there, when initially people come in touch with ISKCON devotees, they think ISKCON is also like that. They are fanatically just talking about Krishna, Krishna only. But actually this is not true. In Hinduism, for so long, all the devatas are worshipped. So like that it's supposed to be. But actually this is not true. The fact is that because Srila Prabhupada even told when he was physically present that people don't like me and my Guru Maharaj, because nobody is actually so much vocal about this fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And equating the name of Lord Krishna to the name of demigods is a big offense. So people were, they were like very in a non-confrontational manner. Many times they will not emphasize this point. They will say, "Arey, okay, it's all right, whatever you want to do." And that may be okay for the beginning. When new people come, it doesn't necessarily need one to really focus on this point as the first point. There's so many things which one can share. Like Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he's just emphasized on this point. You are not this body, but you are spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And that in itself has so many implications and applications that people were able to see the practical application and then understand slowly, and then very easily they were able to accept Krishna as Supreme Personality or Godhead, no problem. And same thing is true for the Hare Krishna movement when it started in India. When they first came in, Prabhupada was actually being questioned and so many things were happening, and Prabhupada actually proved to the Indians at that time that this process work wonders. If you apply it, you'll see the difference. And see, I have made hippies to happies. And then the young boys in those days, boys and girls who accepted this Krishna consciousness movement after coming in touch with Srila Prabhupada, even including some of the Indians, they all were able to see how much it changed themselves. So this is how we can see that this application, this knowledge has so much application in practical life. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that conception of many gods in the Vedic culture by the ignorant is completely wrong. So it's not like a polytheistic religion. No, we have only one supreme Lord. Some people think it is monotheistic, but polymorphic monotheism. By that they mean that there is one supreme, which is Lord Brahma. Polymorphic means in different forms you can. This is Mayavad philosophy actually. That it is monotheistic, polymorphic. Polymorphic means different forms you can worship the god. So that is Mayavad. Krishna has a transcendental form, and therefore it's monotheistic. And of course, Krishna's forms are unlimited. So from that way, you can say, okay, that word can be understood polymorphic. But usually, Mayavadis, they that conception also comes when people try to talk in this language. Anyways, coming back to the purport, the conception of many gods in the Vedic literature by the ignorant is completely wrong. The Lord is one without a second, but he expands himself in many ways, and this is confirmed in the Vedas. Such expansions of the Lord are limitless, but some of them are the living entities. So here it is mentioned about different forms of the Lord. So Lord has so many different forms, and living entities are also one of the forms of the we say, right, Ansh. What is that shloka? Mamevamsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashashtani indriyani prakriti. So Krishna is saying that how the living entities also are part and parcel of him only. So living entities are not as powerful. They are very, very infinitesimal. And the Lord and his plenary parcels, they are unlimited. Plenary expansions. And therefore, there are two different types of expansions, or different expansions. And then jivas include all the demigods, all the living entities, all the humans, plants, 8.4 million species. Everything is jiva. But the Supreme Lord Vishnu Tattvas, they are infinite, Supreme Lord, planetary expansions. And then here is mentioned about the 4 sampradayas. And here specifically, I think Prabhupada is saying out of them, the prominent are the 3, Brahma, Rudra and Shri. And then Kumar is also there. Seems like that is what Srila Prabhupada is saying here. And they all declare this, that Supreme Lord, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these 4 sampradayas are the bona fide sampradaya. All right. So those are few thoughts I can share on this. Any other devotees would like to share any points? Any comments, reflections, realizations, corrections?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danda Pranam to all devotees. So just a realization, Prabhuji, that earlier I was under the misconception that in all the sampradayas, they have the deity as the, like Rudra Sampradaya has Lord Shiva as the supreme, they believe, or, Shri Sampradaya, they believe, Lakshmi ji is the supreme. So like that. But it seems like here it's saying, Prabhupada is saying that in all those sampradayas also, they have this, the knowledge is coming from those, but the knowledge is the same, that the Supreme Personality is Lord Krishna. So that's something that's new, realization for me, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So I didn't understand, Prabhu. You said previously you used to think in Rudra Sampradaya, they think Rudra is the Supreme Personality?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay.
That is the misconception I had.
Okay. Okay. So all these 4 sampradayas are actually bona fide sampradayas. All right. Anybody else?
And Prabhuji, one more question I had. Like, we were having this discussion a few days ago. I think you were not there, but we didn't have a final. We didn't have a consensus on that. It was being. We were having this discussion whether, we all know Mahabharata was written by Lord Ganesha. Bhagavatam also, some devotees are mentioning that may have been written by Lord Ganesha. And actually, one devotee, Sheetal Mataji actually forwarded me a blog from ISKCON Desire Tree where it mentions that Mahabharata and this Bhagavatam were the 2 major works which were written by Lord Ganesha, though they were, Vyas, Vyasdev was saying them. But
Correct.
that is the only source I have heard about that, for Bhagavatam to be written by Lord Ganesha also.
Yes, Prabhuji, I think that's what I also remember hearing, that many of these scriptures Srila Vedvyas composed, and Ganeshji wrote many of them. So as such, who wrote how many, I don't know if there is a place where these things are written, but the general understanding which I had is also that Vyasdev was composing, and Lord Ganesha volunteered to write.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So anybody else would like to share anything? Otherwise, we'll go to the next one. Any volunteers who would like to read this?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, there you go.
Yatranurakta sahasev dhira
Yatranurakta sahasaiva dhira
vyapo yadehadishu sangamudham mudham
vyapo yaddehadishu sangamudham
mudham vrajanti tatpa vrajanti tatparamaham sayam antayam
vrajanti tatparamaham
yasmin ahimso pashama swadharma.
yasmin ahimso pashama swadharma.
Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Purport. Only the self-control can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Self-control means not indulging in sense enjoyment more than is necessary. And those who are not self-controlled are given over to sense enjoyment. Dry philosophical speculation is a subtle sense enjoyment of the mind. Sense enjoyment leads one to the path of darkness. Those who are self-controlled can make progress on the path of liberation from the conditional life of a material existence. The Vedas therefore enjoin that one should not go on the path of darkness, but should make a progressive march toward the path of light and liberation. Self-control is actually achieved not by artificially stopping the senses from material enjoyment, but by becoming factually attached to the Supreme Lord by engaging one's unalloyed senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. The senses cannot be forcibly curbed, but they can be given proper engagement. Purified senses, therefore, are always engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. The perfectional stage of sense and engagement is called Bhakti Yoga. So, those who are attached to the means of Bhakti Yoga are factually self controlled and can all of a sudden give up their homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. This is called the Paramhamsa stage. Hamsas or swans accept only milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Similarly, those who accept the service of the Lord instead of Maya service are called the Paramhamsas. They are naturally qualified. Okay, they are naturally qualified with all the good attributes such as pridelessness, freedom from vanity, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, and sincerity. All these godly qualities exist in the devotee of the Lord spontaneously. Such Paramhansas who are completely given up to the service of the Lord are very rare. They are very rare even amongst the liberated souls. Real non-violence means freedom from envy. Okay, real non-violence means freedom from envy. In this world, everyone is envious of his fellow being. But a perfect Paramhansa, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. He loves every living being in relation with the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means perfect dependence on God. Every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. But when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord. Okay. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on the conditions of matter. The Paramhansa stage is the highest perfectional stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. So, in this translation and purport, Prabhupada is explaining the qualities of Paramhamsa and how one can become the Paramhamsa. So, in this, Prabhupada is saying that everybody, Prabhuji, can you scroll up? I just want to read from, from the purport, yes. Only the self-controlled can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is saying that, the people, those who are self-controlled and, they are not engaged in the enjoying their senses or in the material world, can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it takes time, like to get attached to the Lord. It's a gradual process. So after reading this purport, I mean, every line of this purport, I was actually would like to share something. Today in the morning, Ankita Mataji shared a lecture series of the Six Goswamis of Rindavan. So I don't remember the name of the Prabhuji, although I sometimes listen some of his lectures. So he was sharing about the Raghunath Das Goswami. So this purport is actually explaining all the qualities or everything I heard in that lecture. I could not complete it. I mean, 30 minutes is still, I need to listen. But in this, all these qualities which Prabhupada is saying, that how I'm relating it to the Raghunath Goswami, that Raghunath Goswami, he was from a very rich aristocratic family. He was very wealthy, and he was born in a very good family. despite of his birth in such a rich family, he was so much attached, with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there so many times it happened that he wanted to run away from his house, and he wanted to meet Chaitanya Prabhu or Nityanand Prabhu. Every time he was facing so many problems, right? So and then but he had his, he always, like, he had his senses so controlled that in spite of being in such a rich family, he was not attached to any of the material things. And here Prabhupada is saying that there's one line here, like this line is so much relevant to Raghunath Das Goswami, that hamsas or swans accept only milk out of the mixture of milk and water. So in that lecture, Prabhuji shared that uh, when Raghunath Das Goswami met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that this is not the right time to come to me. You should go back and you should live, like आपको जो है एक नॉर्मल इंसान की तरह रहना है, जैसे जो मटीरियली वर्ल्ड में रहते हैं, बट आपको सिर्फ प्रिटेंड करना है वैसे रहने का, आपको वैसा होना नहीं है. So that is why I'm able to relate this line to that he went back to his house, and then he had all that, and his father said that he got, his father forced him to get married, but he was despite of getting married or having all those opulences, and later he was helping his father in his business also, still he was not attached to that. So he was able to accept only milk out of a mixture of milk and water. So that's why he's a paramhansa, right? Because उनको बहुत अच्छे से पता था कि मुझे रहते हुए भी गृहस्थ में या इन सब के साथ रहते हुए भी what I have to take and what I have to leave, and all the time उनके दिमाग में यही चलता था that I have to take vairagya, I have to go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I have to be in his service. But right now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me ki, to help your father or be there in the family, but this is not the right time for you. So he was following his Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order completely. And then Prabhupada is saying here that there are certain attributes Prabhupada mentioning of the Paramhansas. And then Prabhupada in the beginning he's saying that the senses cannot be forcibly controlled or curbed from the conditional. Where is it? I lost it. Okay. Yeah, and those who are not self-controlled are given over senses for enjoyment. Dry philosophical speculation is a subtle sense enjoyment of the mind, right? So this is so happen कि हम जब भी किसी चीज के बारे में बात करते हैं, we try to talk about something, and when we don't have full knowledge about something, we try to speculate, right? And that gives us such a subtle enjoyment that sometime without any proof we win some arguments, right? And we sometimes say, oh, मैंने तो उसको defeat कर दिया, या मैंने तो जो है मुझे तो इतनी knowledge है किसी चीज के बारे में. So this dry speculation is also a subtle sense enjoyment of the mind, because it gives you peace sometimes to argue with the people or defeat them, even sometimes when you don't have a complete knowledge about it. So that is also a sense of enjoyment. Sense enjoyment leads one to the path of darkness, right? And those who are self-controlled can make progress on the path of liberation from the conditional life of material existence. So those who are trying to control their senses can gradually make the progress on the path of liberation. Because in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that if you want to go to the samadhi, there are certain yam or niyam you have to follow, right? So any yoga begins with some do's and don'ts. So people nowadays are they want to do yoga for their to just fix some problems in their body or just for a peace of mind, but they are not able to follow the yam and niyam. So that is the reason they cannot reach up to the level of samadhi, and they are not sometimes able to follow the yoga also properly. So this is what I heard in I think one lecture, I think by uh, uh, I forgot the name. I'm so sorry. My memory is very bad. The Vedas therefore enjoin that one should not go on the path of darkness, but to make a progressive march toward the path of light of liberation. So this is our Vedas actually tells us this is the way how to lead our life. That if we are in the material world, we should be able to discriminate that what to choose, what not to choose. जैसे कि अभी अनिशा माता जी ने शेयर किया था और मैं प्रभुजी का नाम भूल okay I'm sorry I forgot the name and Prabhuji mentioned that people Vedas I forgot what I was I'm so sorry मैं भूल ही गई नाम याद करते करते should not a progressive march the I'll share it later. I'm sorry. Self-control is actually achieved not by artificially stopping sense from the material enjoyment, but by becoming factually attached to the Supreme Lord of engaging one's unalloyed senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. So, जैसे कि हमने पढ़ा है भगवत गीता में कि आप अपने माइंड को जब तक एक हायर टेस्ट नहीं दोगे तब तक इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू एंजॉय योर टू स्टॉप योर सेंसेस बिकॉज जो मन है इट्स लाइक अ मंकी वो कुछ ना कुछ आपका दिमाग जो है इधर से उधर कूदता रहेगा जब तक आप उसको एक हायर टेस्ट एक हायर एंगेजमेंट नहीं दोगे तब तक फॉर अ माइंड इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू स्टॉप सो that has been I think Prabhupada is explaining here and that's my understanding and self-control okay and then the senses cannot be forcibly curbed but they can be given proper engagement. Purified senses therefore are always engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This perfectional stage of the sense enjoyment is called Bhakti Yoga. So in Bhakti Yoga you have to control your senses and that in terms of to come to the Bhakti Yoga or to get attached to the Krishna, you have to control your senses. There are many things that you have to stop doing in terms of follow the Bhakti. So here we cannot do it forcibly, but we have to give higher taste to ourselves and then, attachment to Krishna can help us to get rid of all those sense enjoyments. And that is the higher sense engagement is called Bhakti Yoga. So when all the time you are engaged in the Krishna service, that is called Bhakti Yoga, and that is the highest stage of sense engagement. So those who are attached to the means of Bhakti Yoga are factually self-controlled and can all of a sudden give up their homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. So here also it reminds me of Raghunath Das Goswami that, when he met Nityanand Prabhu and came back, then Nityanand Prabhu told him that, now the time, after some time, you will be meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And since then he was just waiting कि, कब वो time आए कि मैं जो है घर से भाग जाऊं और जो है मैं ये सब चीजें छोड़ के और जो है चैतन्य महाप्रभु की सर्विस में लग जाऊं. So यहाँ पे I am able to relate it that homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. So अपनी इतनी comfortable life को छोड़ के he wanted to go in Vrindavan and be in the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. और जब वो जा रहे थे रास्ते में जंगल में, he did not take the normal way because he knew कि जब गार्ड वगैरह जागेंगे वो मुझे पकड़ लेंगे तो मैं जंगल के रास्ते से जाता हूँ. और जंगल का रास्ता was it was scary because वहाँ पे बहुत सारे so those snakes और इतने सारे जंगली जानवर होते थे, but उनको किसी चीज का डर नहीं था because he knew that I have to meet चैतन्य महाप्रभु. So प्रभु जी बता रहे थे कि जो एक भक्त होता है कृष्णा का उसको किसी भी चीज का जो है उसको डर नहीं होता because उसको पता होता है कि if I'm going to leave this body, I'm going to see Krishna, and if I'm here, still I'm living in the service of Krishna. So it reminded me of that. And then I shared this example of milk and water, that how I related it to Raghunath Das Goswami, that it was easy for him, and that similarly, those who accept the service of the Lord instead of Maya service are called Paramhansas. So this is the definition of Paramhansas, कि जो भगवान की सेवा को माया की सेवा से ऊपर रखते हैं या जो भगवान की सेवा करते हैं और माया की सेवा नहीं करते, they are called Paramhansas. They are naturally qualified with all the good attributes such as pridelessness, freedom from vanity, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, and sincerity. तो ये सब उनके they are naturally qualified with this. So they are born with these qualities, right? So with the time, उनके अंदर से ये चीज आ जाती है, and they are very easily able to leave the Maya, the service of Maya, and go in the service of Krishna. All these godly qualities exist in the devotees of the Lord spontaneously. Such Paramhansas who are completely given up to the service of the Lord are very, very rare. भगवद गीता के श्लोक में, आई एम सो सॉरी, आई डोंट रिमेम्बर द श्लोक, बस उसमें कहा है कि बहुत सारे लोग जो है दे वर्शिप मी, बट आउट ऑफ थाउजेंड्स डिवोटीज में से भी कोई एक होता है जो भगवान को पूरी तरह से समझ पाता है. And they are very, very rare. They are very rare even amongst the liberated souls. Real non-violence means freedom from envy. तो हमें हमेशा से हमने जैसे पढ़ा है या जैसे सीखा है कि बोलते हैं कि नॉन वायलेंस का मतलब किसी को मारना नहीं, किसी को कुछ कहना नहीं और किसी को हर्ट करने की कोशिश नहीं करना. लेकिन रियल नॉन वायलेंस मीन्स फ्रीडम फ्रॉम एनवी. व्हेन इन आवर माइंड वी आर फ्री फ्रॉम दिस जेलसी, वी आर फ्री फ्रॉम एनवी, कि हमको किसी के भी सुख से जो है हमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती, और किसी की प्रोग्रेस को देख के जब हमें प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती, when we stop comparing ourselves with somebody in the material world, right? And we always want to progress in the devotional life, and when we think that, you know, we are the soul, we are not the body, and we are the servitor of Krishna, so I shouldn't be jealous or feel envy from anybody here in this world, because everybody is a part and parcel of Krishna. So that is actually real non-violence, which is so difficult to practice in this material world. I mean, it's always easier said than done, you know, because having this thought means you are completely free. You are actually become a Paramhansa when you don't have compare, or you don't feel jealous to anybody in this world. In this world, everyone is envious of his fellow being, but a perfect Paramhansa, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. He loves every being in relation with the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means perfect dependence on the God. So sometimes people say, you know, हमको renunciation लेना है, या हम अब हमारी age हो गई है और अब, you know, we need to be we need to take renunciation. But renunciation is saying, but they're still somewhere dependent on their family members, you know. It is easy to leave your bodily attachments, but it is very difficult to leave your mental attachments. कि हम मन से हम मतलब अगर हम किसी के बीच में रहते हैं, जैसे फैमिली के बीच में रहते हैं, तो वहां से जाके किसी धाम में रहना बहुत ही आसान हो जाता है, कि आपको लगता है कि चलो वहां भी हम रह लेंगे और हमारे सारे अरेंजमेंट्स हो जाएंगे, विल बी एबल टू डू भक्ति. बट एट द सेम टाइम मेंटली डिटैच होना और सिर्फ कृष्णा से अटैच होना, ये बहुत ही difficult hai. But the complete renunciation doesn't mean that you leave your house and go and stay in some dham, but still get attached, you know, stay attached to your family members. Not staying attached not means that you are not well wisher to them, you are not thinking good about them, but attached means ki, you know, you think about them, and you still you know, you still feel, you know, that your happiness is somewhere dependent on them. But when your happiness or your everything completely dependent on Krishna, your happiness, your sorrows, your everything, you think कि भगवान जो है वही मेरा सब कुछ करेंगे और मेरे पास भगवान के अलावा कोई और नहीं है. When anything which happens in your life, you accept it as the mercy of the Lord, right? All the distresses of everything, you just don't blame the Lord, but you just see, okay, you know, I'm in this situation, Krishna will, you know, pull me out of this problem. Or, you know, Krishna, if something is good happening to me, then I should say, okay, Krishna, I don't deserve it, you know, you are the one who's doing it. So when we have this dependence on the God, that is called true renunciation. Every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. But when forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature, because we forgot our relation with the Lord. And even if we know, then, we are dependent on the Krishna, but we still prefer to dependent on somebody else to enjoy for a time being, or to think कि अभी तो कृष्णा हमारा काम नहीं कर रहे हैं या नहीं हो रहा है मेरे accordingly, but if I get attached to this person, or my family members or anybody, they can do, and I can have comfort in my life. So people are, that's how people are more dependent on people around them, or anybody in life. Everybody is dependent on somebody, but the complete dependence on Krishna is the true renunciation, and that should be our nature, and that's how we should think, that if I'm here, I'm here, maybe Krishna has some purpose for me, that's why Krishna sent me here. And if anything bad happens to me, we should blame ourselves rather than blaming Krishna. But if anything good happens to us, we should always say thanks to Krishna. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the condition of material nature, and thus become completely dependent on Prabhuji, can you scroll up? Okay. Dependent on the conditions of matter. The Paramhansa stage is the highest perfection in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Lord. So this Paramhansa stage is the highest perfectional stage in Bhakti Yoga. So that's all my understanding from this. I'm so sorry. I actually was thinking a lot which I heard in past and trying to just share, but I'm sorry, I just forgot. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji Mataji, please add and correct.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for reading and sharing. So, any other devotees would like to add something here? So, Mataji nicely explained. So, Hamsa is swan. Swan has a tendency that if you give a mixture of milk and water, then swan is such a trained bird, animal, can take out the milk and leave the water behind. People can't do this, but that's why Hamsa, swan, is very special. So similarly, Paramahamsa, topmost swan. This is Paramhamsa, is one of the stage, is the highest stage of sannyas. Sannyas has 4 stages, right? Anybody remembers? Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Parivarjakacharya, and Paramahamsa. So there are 4 stages of sannyas, and Paramhamsa is the stage where which is talked about, which Mataji nicely explained. All the attributes Prabhupada has mentioned here. Nirmatsara, so non-envious, prideless, freedom from vanity, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, sincerity. All these great qualities are displayed by Paramhamsas, and they are totally dependent on Lord. So one of the aspects of sannyas is total dependence on the Lord. So once upon a time, one young brahmachari is getting trained, and then he mentioned to one of the sannyasis that, my intention is that I have completed my studies now. I want to go do some work, job, maybe go abroad, earn some money, and get some, so that when I join full time, I should not be dependent on the temple. I don't want to be dependent on the temple. And this very senior devotee, sannyasi, was explaining, actually this is the problem which we have. We think we can be independent. Depending on Krishna is what the highest Paramhamsas, they are doing, displaying. And we, in our situation, we think we can be independent of Krishna. So that is very important point I was remembering from the discussion. Maharaj was sharing in a lecture how this tendency of being independent is very deep, and it manifests in so many different ways. All right, so it's already 9 o'clock. Anybody else would like to add any final points? Anything you want to bring up before we conclude?
Prabhuji, the lecture I was sharing points from by His Grace Ravi Lochan Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji speaks nicely.
Yes, Prabhuji.
He usually speaks everything from memory very nicely. Even finer details about Ekadashi when he shares. Okay, so I think we'll conclude here. Thank you all the devotees for joining. We'll chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra 11 times. Then we'll conclude. ग्रंथ राज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।